Hi, welcome back to the Megala Mukos. It's been a while. It's Erev Shavuos today, holy day in Eretz Yisrael, but we're under fire. As I'm sure you've heard, rockets are raining down on our country. And so I want to talk about that in the context of preparation for Chag Matan Torah. So it's called shooting rockets, anomalous or characteristic of Yishmael. I want to talk about Abraham's legacy for Isaac and Ishmael. So of course we're getting ready to receive the Torah. It's called Chag HaBikurim. We're bringing first fruits to the Beis Hamikdash. So I took a look in the Rambam in Hilchos Tzmidim U'Musafim, the exact sacrifices that we're going to bring on Chag HaShavuos. And the Rambam has, as always, beautiful language and really crisp and clear depiction of what needs to happen. So he says, B'yom HaChamishim Misfiras HaOmer, on the 50th day of Sfiras HaOmer, and that's tonight, Hu Chag HaShavuot. V'hu Atzeret, another name for the holiday besides Chag HaShavuos is Atzeret. U'b'yom hazeh makrivim musaf, k'mo musaf Rosh Chodesh. So the Rambam describes the musaf sacrifice, the additional offering that we bring in addition to the daily offering, as being a standard one, the same one that's brought every month on Rosh Chodesh. What is it comprised of? Shnei parim, va'ayil, v'shiva kvasim, kulam oilois, useir chatas. So the Rambam enumerates the animals that are brought in the sacrifice. I wanted to go through this in detail, and I have a little picture here of the animals. 2 oxen, 1 ram, 7 sheep, all of which are oila offerings. That means they're completely consumed on the Mizbeach. And then 1 goat as a sin offering. So there's midrashing material that compares these animals, and again, in this context of the Korbanos, relating to the patriarchs and the whole Abraham legacy thing. So Parim, it says that Abraham ran to get the oxen to feed his guests. So the oxen correspond to Abraham. The ram, everybody remembers the ram of Isaac, at the binding of Isaac, instead of actually slaughtering Isaac, a ram was offered. And the sheep, everybody knows that Jacob was a shepherd for his father-in-law Laban, and so he had lots of sheep. And I think, again, the numbers for Jacob, why it's 7 is a really important number in Judaism. It's on the days of the week, and it's the whole collective. The whole family is 7. And so Jacob, who is the father of the family of Israel, we bring 7 sheep corresponding to Jacob. Isaac was only 1, and there was just 1 ram, and so we bring only 1 ram. But for Abraham, it says we bring 2 oxen, and I want to talk about why. But let me complete the set here. The set is completed with a goat, and the goat, the Sa'ir, is related to Esav. Okay, Esav inherited a place called Mount Sa'ir, and he was hairy, which is Sa'ir. And so this is a sin offering. And that has to do with Yom Kippur, where we bring 2 Sa'irim, 2 goats, and one is the Sa'ir Lazazel, where we put basically all of Jacob's sins onto Esav. And just a word of understanding that has to do with the temptations of Western civilization from the time of the Greeks and the Romans till today. Western civilization, casts its spell upon us. It's really tempting to get involved there and even go astray there. And so on the holidays and on Rosh Chodesh, we always bring a Se'ir Chatas. We sort of cleanse ourselves from what's called Tumas Mikdash V'Kodshav, of coming to the Beis Hamikdash inappropriately when we're defiled. Anyway, I want to go back to, why does Abraham have 2 oxen? Okay, Jacob has 7 sheep and Isaac has a single ram, but Abraham has 2 oxen. And I'm going to throw out the reason, because there are 2 descendants. There are 2 actually parallel pathways who are carrying the legacy of Abraham throughout history. And that, of course, is Isaac and Yishmael. Okay, and I want to look at the psukim on that. So you recall, regarding Abraham's house, for a long time, he and his wife Sarah were barren until she suggested that he marry Hagar. And sure enough, Hagar had a son, that's Yishmael. And then when he's 13, 14, finally, Sarah miraculously gives birth to Isaac. But now we have a situation where Sarah sees something amiss. Vatera Sarah has been Hagar Amitzris, Asher Yolda Abraham Mitzachek. So Sarah sees the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, that she had born to Abraham, Mitzachek. And that word Mitzachek, which has to do with laughter, being jovial, playing around. But we're going to see Rashi that it has very much darker connotations here. What does Sarah say when she sees this? "Vatoimer l'Avraham garesh ha'ama hazois ve'es beno ki lo yirash ben ama hazois im beni im Yitzchak." Sarah says this is not going to happen. There are not going to be two inheritors, not Yishmael and my son Yitzchak. It just won't work. You have to get rid of, divorce, drive out Hagar and Yishmael from the house. And that was greatly troubling to Abraham. He loved Yishmael, he loved Hagar, and he had embraced them and was raising them with his good faith. And so now to be told to throw them out of history, essentially, was an incredibly difficult tribulation for him. It says in Pirkei Avos that Abraham was tried with 10 tribulations, and one of them was divorcing Hagar and driving out Yishmael. And sees the pain in Abraham's heart on this, and he tells him, Abraham, don't worry about it. Kol asher tomar elecha Sarah shma bekoilo ki beyitzchak yikaret lecha zora. God says to Abraham, don't trouble yourself over this. On the boy and your maidservant Hagar, whatever Sarah says, listen to her. Shma bekola, listen to her voice. The implication is she has Ruach HaKodesh, she has prophecy. And so she's not telling you just out of petty female jealousy. This is about insight, prophetic insight into the future of the Jewish people. So follow what she says. And your future, your progeny is really through Isaac. B'yitzchak yikar lechazara. Okay, that's the future. Now, the very next words of the Torah are the following. V'gamez ben ha'ama l'goya simenu ki zarachahu. And yet Hashem then tells Abraham, Yishmael's not out of the picture. He's also your descendant, and he will be the father of a great nation. And again, the Ummah, right? The nation of Islam, okay, not Farrakhan, but the Muslims, a billion Muslims throughout the world are good people and are also bearing the legacy of Abraham. So Abraham has a double legacy, both in Isaac and in Yishmael. The problem is when Yishmael goes astray, when he's mitzachek, when he's playing around. So what does this mean, playing around? So Rashi says, Lashon Avodah Zarah. This is idolatry. As it says, another game that Yishmael likes to play is Gilui Arayos, forbidden marital relations. Like Ashes Potiphar said to Yosef, she's coming to molest me. So we're talking here about, again, sexual immorality. The next one, these are war games. He's playing with weapons. That was a military exercise in the generals of King David, that they were putting up their soldiers to mamish fight, like jousting. And that's something that here Yishmael was engaged in, and Sarah sees it, and she says, this has got to stop. And Rashi continues, Shaya Meirivim Yitzchak. There was a fight between young Yitzchak and Yishmael, who's again 13 years older. And what are they fighting about? Hayerusha, the legacy, the inheritance. Vomer, ani bechor, v'noitel bishnayim. Yishmael says, I was here first. I'm the firstborn, primogenitor. I get 2 portions. And they would go out to the field, v'yoitzim besada, v'noitel kashto, v'yore bochitzim. And Yishmael takes his bow and arrow, and they go out to the field, and Yishmael is actually shooting arrows at Isaac. Sound familiar? Kemadetema, kemislahleha, hayorez zikim, v'goimer v'amar, halo misachakani, just joking. So you have here Yishmael engaged in heinous acts of idolatry, of immorality, incest, taking other people's wives, as well as playing lethal war games, okay, and endangering other people's lives. And what's his response to it? I'm just playing around. I'm just kidding. That's not really an acceptable answer. So again, this sounds, sort of grotesquely familiar to us. I looked up this pasuk that Rashi quotes in Mishlei, and it was chilling for me, again, at this time that Israel has been hit with over 1,000 rockets sent by Yishmaelites from Gaza. And I want to mention that, a third or a quarter of the rockets that they send from Gaza land in Gaza, meaning killing and maiming their own people. But their attitude is like misachekani. So what does it say in Mishlei? Kemislalea hayoyre zikim chitzim v'maves. Rashi didn't bring all the sort of graphic detail from Mishlei, but I brought the English here. As a madman who casteth firebrands, arrows, and death, so is the man that deceiveth his neighbor and saith, just kidding. So that's I loosely translated the last part. Ish rimas re'eu v'amar halo misachekani. So that's the part of Yishmael that's got to go, okay? And again, just to bring it home, where you're reading Rashi and Chumash and you're reading, the Washington Post, and you're seeing the same type of language, where Hamas spokesman Abu Obaida said in a televised statement, the decision to hit Tel Aviv, Dimona, and Jerusalem is easier for us than drinking water. So he's making light. We're shooting rockets into civilian country, and I mean, Arab Israelis have been killed by rockets, direct hits. But they're just drinking water. They're just shooting arrows. They're just playing around, dealing death to themselves and their neighbors. So that's got to go. Okay, that's what Sarah saw and says, Abraham, this is not your legacy. You need to put your foot down. And Isaac is the future. So the truth is, of course, everybody knows that Yishmael, at the end of his life, was Chayzer B'tshuva. He made good. And it's Isaac and Yishmael who together bury Abraham. And Yishmael there gives honor and puts Isaac in front of himself. So again, at this time, this sort of dark time in history, when we're in a very difficult period here in Israel, Nikuli Tfilah, I'm full of prayer, that Yishmael should internalize the legacy of Abraham and get with the program and realize that it's not, I'll tell you the words of my grandfather, my holy grandfather. He used to say, man was not put on this world to hate and kill and destroy, but to love, to give, and to honor. So when Yishmael will recognize the true legacy of Abraham, and he'll start to honor his own people, okay? Instead of using all the money from the EU and America and Qatar and wherever else, the millions of dollars that flow into Gaza, ostensibly to, help the humanitarian crisis, that's wonderful. But instead of channeling all that money for death and destruction and projectiles, missiles and rockets, why don't you truly build your economy, help your people, advance into the 21st century, okay? When that happens, when the Arabs have a responsible government and people that truly care for them and live up to the legacy of Abraham, so then we're all gonna live in peace. So, ani kulot tefillah, ani mevarech otchem, I'm blessing everybody with a Chag Sameach, Simcha, Kabbalah Torah, Bezrat Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu yavi lanu geula shlema b'karov. Thanks for being here. Looking forward to seeing you next time.